Nothing like being vilified to get your senses acutely attuned. But we had a hearing in Judiciary last week, July 19th actually, in which the Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, appeared. During the exchange that I had with Secretary Napolitano, I said these words. It's from the transcript. And this administration seems to have a hard time recognizing members of terrorist groups who are allowed into the White House. You're aware of that happening, aren't you, Secretary Napolitano? Absolutely not. Well, this week, apparently somebody brought her back into the loop, and she testified before Pete King's committee, and there are a couple of articles here about it, rather interesting. One from The Hill, Jordy Yeager, apparently posted July 26th, says Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano told lawmakers on Wednesday, which would be yesterday, that a member of an Egyptian militant group labeled by the United States as a terrorist organization was vetted by 3 U.S. agencies before visiting the White House. Napolitano said the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Secret Service all thoroughly examined the Egyptian man, Hani Noor Eldin, before his visit to Washington, D.C., where he met with members of Congress and senior administration officials. Then there's a quote in the article from Secretary Napolitano that says, as we move forward, we're going to continue to have visitors to this country that the State Department and others feel are useful to bring to the country to have discussions moving forward who say they're members of a political party that in the past has been so designated. Another quote, he was vetted before he got a visa against all known terrorists and other databases for derogatory information. None was found. As he entered the United States, we too vetted him against all our holdings, including terrorists and information from a variety of sources, and no derogatory information was found. Before he entered the White House, he was vetted a 3rd time by the Secret Service. No derogatory information was found. So then we can have some confidence this was not a security breach in that sense. Napolitano said she knew of no such intention by U.S. officials to release Abdel Rahman, the blind sheikh. When Chairman King said the administration, whether it's this administration or another administration, may feel that some of these people can be dealt with, can be worked with, but if that's to be done, to me, it would seem it would have to be an open process, a transparent process, where the people would know who was being let into this country. Napolitano, according to the article, conceded that King made a, quote, fair point, unquote, and she would look into whether efforts were taken to notify members of Congress. Because it's a little pesky detail, there does happen to be laws on the books that were apparently ignored in that process. But the problem is, when the Secretary of Homeland Security says there's no derogatory information, when the information we have indicates he's a member of a group that we have named as a terrorist organization, then it would seem that to most Americans the obvious thing would be the fact that he is a member of a known terrorist organization would to most of us, or at least many of us, be considered derogatory information. The fact that we can't dig up minute details of specific acts of misconduct, nonetheless, should not be necessary when someone is a known member of a terrorist organization, an organization designated by this government to be terrorist. It's an amazing thing. But then we're told, here's an article from the Washington Examiner, Joel Gerke, July 25th. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano told Congress today to expect more members of designated foreign terrorist organizations to visit the United States. Quote, I think you are right in pointing out that as we move forward, we are going to continue to have visitors to this country the State Department and others feel are useful to bring to the country to have discussions moving forward who say they are members of the political party that in the past have been so designated, unquote, Napolitano told House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Pete King during a committee hearing this morning. Napolitano was defending the decision to host Hani Noor Eldin, a member of Egyptian parliament elected on the political party platform of the Islamic group which the State Department has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. And just to remind Mr. Speaker, in our hearing, I said these words. This administration seems to have a hard time recognizing members of terrorist groups who are allowed in the White House. You're aware of that happening, aren't you? Her answer, absolutely not. So the evidence seemed to be pretty clear. He was a member of a known terrorist group. He was allowed into the White House, but the Secretary of Homeland Security, her answer to that happening was absolutely not. She didn't say we had vetted him many times, and even though he was a member of a known terrorist organization that we in the State Department had designated a terrorist organization, we still thought he was safe even though he was a member of a terrorist organization. She said it just absolutely did not happen. Absolutely not. The article goes on from Washington Examiner. I think, and this is in quotes, I think we have to add more nuance to that, unquote. She said when King mentioned that Eldin is part of a designated foreign terrorist organization, quote, we have to know what the group was. Is it now a political party that is running the government of a country that has strong ties to the United States, unquote. She added that he went through these 3 stages of vetting and, quote, everyone who looked at this person felt confident he was not a security risk to the White House or to the United States, unquote. King charged the Obama administration with violating a law in hosting Eldin at the White House, quote, it appears as if the law was not complied with in that he did not apply for a waiver and Congress was not notified, which is also required, unquote. Quote, it does not appear that either the letter or the spirit of the law was complied with, unquote. When King reiterated that complaint about the process by which Eldin was allowed in the country, Napolitano conceded that, quote, on the process, that's a fair point to make. Well, there's a reason we have laws, and you would hope that someone who is a cabinet official in the top position of our Homeland Security would think that it is important to comply with the law. But just as we've seen massive amounts of money go to places that have leaders who say they want to eliminate Israel in the United States, we see this kind of conduct from this administration. And I have reporters asking me if I want to apologize for 5 separate letters that were written to 5 separate inspectors general of 5 different departments with different facts pertaining to that department in each letter, and the facts in the letter are true. And the simple question was not accusation or allegation, because it's pretty obvious there is influence by the Muslim Brotherhood in America. So the question is, how much influence? Where is it coming from? And it is an amazing thing to see all of this transpire. Obviously, it's great fun and sport to attack a messenger that is not liked by certain people in the media. But what we keep seeing, that it is amazing, is happening in what was once the proud tradition of journalism in America, is our national security being sacrificed on the altar of political correctness. Why isn't the mainstream media making a big deal about a Secretary of Homeland Security who one week says absolutely not, it was not a member of a known terrorist organization that got in the White House, and a week later she admits it did happen, but we properly vetted him 3 different times? What apparently is being grossly overlooked also, that I get as I speak to Muslims in other part of the world who are our friends, who have fought with us, who have buried family members and loved ones because they want to live in freedom like we do. They don't want a strict group like the Taliban dictating their lives. They're moderate Muslims who want to live in peace. And what they keep bringing home to me is what this administration misses entirely. When the President of the United States, when the leaders of this country, this administration, meet with members of known terrorist organizations and will not meet with our Muslim friends who have fought with us instead of against us from other parts of the world, the message has a chilling effect on our friends wanting to continue to be our friends, because it appears to be the most dangerous place in the world to be, in the category of friends with the United States, because it means this administration is one step away from abandoning them in favor of ties and relationships with groups that we know have been terrorist organizations. It's not just the meeting with, it's not just a danger or lack of danger of someone coming in the White House. Of course, they can check them with the metal detectors to make sure they're not carrying anything. But it goes beyond that. It devastates our friends. It destroys hope around the world for people who are hoping that we'll stand up as we once have, not for the Muslim Brotherhood, who want an international caliphate, including the United States, and the United States to be added to the 50 states, Muslim states, that comprise the OIC. It's what we're doing to our friends. I hope and pray that people in the mainstream media will get past the enjoyment of vilifying and trying to destroy the messenger and look at the message. That they'll get beyond the lazy tactics of calling someone, getting with someone and saying, what's your opinion about these allegations, and getting a response, well, gee, we don't think there's anything to them, instead of digging the facts out and presenting them as the once proud journalist tradition was here in America. There's still journalists doing it, but I hope that that practice will be extended. We're just hurting ourselves, but unfortunately we also hurt our friends when we do that. For those who say there is no evidence of any Muslim Brother influence in America, Mr. Speaker, I would urge them to go back and review the evidence from the convictions in the Holy Land Foundation trial obtained in November 2008, before this administration began embracing the name co-conspirators like CARE and ISNA. When they were named as co-conspirators of supporting terrorism, I would hope they'd go back to the 1995 trial where Andrew McCarthy did a stellar job and the Clinton administration awarded him for his incredible work in proving that there are people in America who want to establish Sharia law as the law of the land and subvert our Constitution. He proved it beyond a reasonable doubt among some wonderful U.S. citizens in New York City. And as Andrew McCarthy has asked, what's happened since 1995 to make that evidence no longer true? It was true then, it's true today, and with that I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.